Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Wheel of Time coverage here at RHAP. We know scripted TV. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and I'm here today to talk about episode 7 of the Wheel of Time season 3. And with me to talk about it is Lord Goldeneyes herself. It's Grace Leeder. How you doing, Grace?
Good. I was going to say I'm actually going to go into the ways and close it from the inside, if that's okay with
Oh,
you.
you're loyal.
Loyal, yeah. I can be Goldeneyes. Yeah.
Hmm.
A good episode, Taryn. I'm excited to chat. A big episode. Excited to chat
Big
about.
episode.
Yeah.
Big episode. This is of course episode 7. This is how this podcast works. We will be spoiling the episode only with a bit of book context in the first portion of this podcast, really the primary portion of this podcast. And then at the end, we will get into more heavy book spoilers. Usually not anything too heavy, but just a bit more about like what we might expect from this season and stuff like that. So that is how we're doing things. So only episode spoilers up here, up front here at first. So let's talk about episode 7 of the Wheel of Time season 3. Grace, sounds like you liked it. I feel like I liked it, and then also had some mixed feelings. That was kind of I feel like I was like in it, and I was like I was digging it, and then the end kind of like woof. And then thinking about it, I was like more woof. And then I rewatched the episode, and for most of it I was like, this is really good. And so I came away with some overall mixed feelings, but I think overall pretty positive.
Yeah, I think that my opinion on it is that this is a type of episode that we have, and like, unfortunately for Wheel of Time, is going to get compared to the big battle set pieces of, most notably, Game of Thrones. And it's the penultimate episode. It was like the cliffhanger, the last episode of like, hey, like we're gonna go, like they're coming, we're gonna do a big fight episode, and we center all on one storyline. And I think for them, some of it I thought worked really well, and the stuff that mostly and even the stuff that I thought worked well did not reach the highs of other episodes I've seen like this on television. And so it's like a fine to good version of that thing, with the added caveat of there's a bunch of stuff in here that I'm like wasn't really jiving with to begin with, so my emotional like tethering to it is a little strained already, so that I'm like have to like be rooting for some of this, I'm rooting for people that I'm not like, so emotionally invested in, and kind of want to be like, can we go spend time with other people actually? And then there are some big decisions that got made that I'm okay to live in the world of like, I don't necessarily know if they're good or bad yet, but I can understand the general feeling of like, wait, hold on. So that's sort of my like, I did mostly like it. I just don't, it's in comparison, it doesn't feel quite as epic as things we've seen, but not from this show, from other, I mean, probably from this show too, but you know.
Yeah, I think what I would say about this episode is that this is, I think, the best action set piece episode that the Wheel of Time has done.
Okay.
I think by a decent margin. I think I've had some pretty big issues with attempts at these kinds of episodes in the past. I think they have not worked very well, and I've had many issues with them. I think logistically and like pacing wise, this one worked really well. I like dedicating an entire dedicated episode to it, not cutting away, maintaining focus. For the most part, a lot of it made sense to me. Like the ways that they're setting up defenses, the plans that they have, the reasons why it goes wrong. Like it all kind of felt logical, and it flowed into itself in a way that felt like it made sense
Like a
in
river, like two rivers, even, Taryn.
like even maybe two, maybe who knows, maybe even more than two.
Wow. Wow.
And that is, a bit of a condemnation of some of the previous big action set pieces where I just felt like we were, just taking little pieces of sets and then moving the pieces around to those various places. This felt good and well set up. And that's, I think, a huge part of why most of this episode worked for me. My, I think, biggest issue with the episode is actually how the battle concludes. Um,
Yes.
and even that, I'm like, I do get it. I think I get what they were going for and why they chose to do it this way, but the execution of it just felt a little off to me. And that's my biggest issue with the episode itself. I think my other biggest issue with this episode is not the episode itself, but rather the setup to this episode,
Mm.
where I'm not sure that enough work was done or was given enough time
Yeah.
really invest us in the two rivers in the way that I think I would have preferred. And like, this whole idea of Perrin as a leader and connecting to his people, and they see him as one of them, and the Lord Goldeneyes stuff. I think a lot of that needed more buildup. And I hate to go back to this well, but I do think we spent a lot of time on Maxim and Alana and their relationship that maybe could have been spent on Perrin building up some, connection to his home and to the people of his home that would have made this episode even better and more impactful for me. So those are, I think, the two big pillar issues that I had with it. But there's a lot to like about the episode too, and I think we're going to talk a lot about those things as well.
I think one of the things that we're gonna run up against though too is like some of the stuff we liked is a little bit easier to just be like, yeah, we liked it, and so it's gonna feel like we are like maybe more critical. 'Cause even I feel like one of the things that actually it's not just taken until this moment. I think that there was a very smart choice done at the very beginning of the show, which was to have in the books, you spend a lot of time with the Two Rivers folks in Two Rivers before there is an inciting incident. And that builds you a connection, and when you return back there you feel this connection to like this thing that was there before. There's a few characters that are in the books who are around at the time that are not in the show. They've decided not to have them, that I feel like would have been ways like there's something a little bit about like most of the people we're dealing with are like generic townsfolk that it doesn't feel like that way in the book. And so this idea of parents' connection with them and wanting to protect them feels a little deeper, and it works a little better, I think, in the books than it did here. I totally agree with you about Maxim and Alana. But yeah, it's actually a choice that I think happened basically like however many years ago at the beginning of season one, that in order to create this sort of like, let's get up and let's go. And I actually think it's like probably the right decision. It actually ends up having a ripple effect, you know, to, almost basically a full 3 seasons later. So it's interesting.
Yeah. And I think, as with most of, I think, generally my criticisms of the show, I think this primarily just comes down to time. They just don't have enough time to do
Yeah.
this. And for as much as we can complain about Maxim and Alana and the time spent on them, like the reality of it is that, like, maybe you can squeeze a couple of minutes out of cutting some of their stuff. And, would a couple of minutes made that much of a difference? Maybe it would have helped, but, then you're also potentially losing other stuff that they're trying to set up in the future. So, I still think I disagree with the decision to spend so much time with them, but the real enemy here is not Maxim and Alana. I think the real enemy is just the amount of time they have in general.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's not just this episode too. Like we're obviously sort of talking about this episode, but there's more that they could have done. I think previously but they're also trying to do this. I mean, this is dense text that we're talking about. And I don't mean that as a bad way. There's a lot. It's so rich. Maybe is a better way than to say
This
dense.
book is, in my memory, like when I was reading them, like one of the biggest books I'd ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Book 4. It's
Yeah.
when it really starts to be really thick, like over 1,000 pages.
And
Books.
what they're trying to do with Perrin in this whole thing is he's returning home, and there's all of the ways in which he's feeling like he has, like, why is he going home versus all these other people who are going off to adventure. There is him, the Wolf brother stuff that's happening, him being reluctant to be a leader but being pushed into the leadership position, and he's developing a relationship with Fael. All of that is happening, but in the book you just have enough time where like that all feels like natural, and yeah, all of these things would be happening. That is actually the way in which your life works, is that you're like, it's not like on this one thing, it's all of these things interplaying together in a way that I think has been pretty tough for them to pull off in a course of a season of a show. So
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, one of the other things that I've taken issue with in the past is with these big budget action sequences. The budget side of things has not always felt like it's all the way there.
Yep.
I think this episode actually felt good. In terms of feeling how many Trollocs there were. They do the trick with like all of the torches,
Yeah. Sure.
but like that's fine. Like that
Yeah. Who
works for
cares?
me.
Yeah.
As long as I'm seeing a huge number of people. I think I've
Right.
said this before, but like I'd rather see a little trick like that done to imply that there's a billion people there than the thing that some shows will sometimes do, which is like, here's 20 of them, but we're
Yes.
saying there's 500.
Right.
Like I don't care what kind of trick it is. I just want to see them there. I just want to feel like there's a bunch of people there, and they did that. And even the ways when they showed all the torches coming as well, that all felt good. The Trollocs looked good. Um,
Yeah.
I think there wasn't a single moment when I was like really taken aback by a Trolloc feeling like too CGI. A lot of it was done practically. It looked like,
Yep.
and that all really worked. The action was good. The violence was good. I think that I was concerned about this, especially when I saw the previous scuffle they had in the White Cloak encampment,
Mhm.
and the kinds of things that we've seen before. But I thought it all, budget wise, looked really good.
Yeah, I thought, and then they frame it really well. So you do get these moments of like creating the idea that there is a bunch of them, but then they also frame it where, okay, they have all the bridges are broken, so there's only this one way they can come in. It's a very narrow path that they're going to come through, and so they're going to basically essentially guard that section. They can only ever come through this way, and there's enough of them, I think, for it to feel like there's a lot. And then the scenes where they're like running up against the gate also felt pretty good. The other thing I give the show credit for is you very easily could have done the thing that many shows have done, which is say, okay, the battle, they're coming as soon as it's sundown, like they're coming. They didn't. Although I do think it gets like a little, it gets into that territory near the end of it. They start this stuff all in daylight. And I kind of give them credit for being willing to do that, because I would agree that I don't really have a lot of criticism about the way it actually looked. And they did that also with the fact that it's all like shot in daylight. So I think
Yeah,
it's impressive on their part.
Grace. Um, the sun has been setting pretty late here.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And so usually I would watch a show like The Wheel of Time, like with dinner,
Yes.
and the sun is set. I went to watch The Wheel of Time
Mhm.
this episode. I knew what the episode was going to be. I knew that it was going to be like the Two Rivers battle,
Yeah.
and I anticipated that it was going to be very dark, and the
Right.
sun
So
was
you
still up, and I was like, I
Wow.
can't watch this right now. I have to wait to
Yeah.
watch this show because it's going to be too dark. And so instead, with dinner, I watched Your Friends and Neighbors, which we'll talk about on the
We
Tastemakers.
will. Yes.
And then I got into watching this episode of The Wheel of Time once the sun had set, so that I was sure that it would be as optimal as possible to watch it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it didn't even feel like it was that necessary, because a lot of this was very visible, and that's like, thank you.
Yeah, it was great. Great choice. But I mean, it eventually got dark, but like that
Mhm.
worked for me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Okay, so let's run through the episode, and we'll point out some of the more specific things that I think I really liked about it. I think most of my criticisms will come later, but there's a lot of stuff I really do like here. So we're all in on the Two Rivers here. The battle is coming. We have this big army coming, and we're doing this thing. It's our last stand. It's a very classic kind of trope.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you know it, somebody's at the door. Who's here? What's going on? It's the Tuatha. It's the Tinkers. And I like the inclusion of the Tinkers here. They obviously were here in the books as well, but this feels like that Wheel of Time, you know, twist to things, where it doesn't feel as generic as sort of like the overall arc of this episode is, where it's like, here are the pacifists who you now know much more about. We
Yeah.
are now
Yeah.
seeing them after season 1. You learned about these people, and Perrin had interactions with them, and he learned a lot from them. Now we know where they come from, their origins. We know a lot more about them, maybe even have more respect for them. I'm not sure, you as a viewer.
Yeah,
Um,
the Bane and Chiad moment where they're sort of insulting Aram and like
mhm.
spitting on the ground, and like Loial's like, you guys are being, I think, like kind of mean, I think. And I think before you get the reveal of like the those Aiel and the Tinkers, you might think that like, yeah, the Aiels are, they're the badass ones. Now you're like, actually, like they're not the lost, they're the ones who with like
Yeah,
they kept on to the prophecy.
they don't even know. They don't
They're
even
the one who
know.
keep the oaths. They're the ones. They're the
Well,
ones.
to be fair, they both diverged in different ways.
Fair enough.
Neither of them are true Aiel. But it was very, and man, the Aiel in this episode, I think, were the stars. They
Yeah, I
were
agree. I
fantastic.
love them. Yeah,
Between, yeah, like that, and then when Perrin says like nobody's faster
that's
than
right.
the Tuatha, and they go.
And then they're bloody, and they're like, yeah, let's fight more Trollocs. It's so cool.
Mhm.
They're very cool. Yeah. But I agree
Um,
with you. The Tinkers coming, I think, is for, I mean, yeah, there's like all of this stuff. It's for like, I remember you were talking a little bit earlier about like, in some ways, like there's a lot of stereotypes and tropes that he's using, but he's trying to like sort of like subvert them. And then in many cases we got called out. It was like, no, this, like, he comes before other, this comes before Dune, this, all this stuff. And a little bit of like, well, yeah.
doesn't come
No,
before
sorry.
Dune.
It doesn't come before Dune. What was I? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Maybe we're thinking about something else. Then. I was talking about another show. Um, but this idea of like, this is pretty classic of like all the villagers coming, like they're attacking us out on the farms, like we got to come in, but like this time it's with the Tinkers. It works for me in terms of like them being let in, and then specifically the role that Perrin's going to give them later.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that this was so interesting to me when I was a kid and I was reading this. This idea of, and at the time I wasn't even as inundated with this concept. I'd probably read like the like Redwall books, and that was probably the extent of my like Last Stand experience. But especially now, when you see so many of these, and it's about the rousing speeches and the fight to the last man, and against all odds, the 300 movie, and all of these different things, right? To have a strong presence of a pacifist philosophy in the midst of that, and not just there for you to dunk on, because this is like the most conceivably justified situation for violence, right? Like, you are facing a threat of extermination by literal monsters. Of course, you would fight back. Of course, you would defend yourself. To insert this pacifist philosophy into there in a way that is not just there to be dunked on, not just there to be debunked, but given respect and given attention, is so interesting to me, and you really get this sense from that comes, I think, straight from Robert Jordan, about like he had a lot of experiences with war himself, and I think that and this is me putting this on Tim because I don't have a lot of experience reading Robert Jordan interviews or anything like that, but like this is the sense I got from him as a writer, that like he internally faced this dilemma of like hating war, and loving this idea of pacifism, but being conflicted with the reality of the situation of like, well, sometimes you need to fight. And I think a lot of that struggle is represented in Perrin throughout the series. And it's literal right here with these two different philosophies trying to coexist in a situation where like they are being forced to fight. I think this is great.
I will correct myself. It's Game of Thrones that I meant to reference, not Dune.
Okay.
Game of Thrones came after Wheel of Time, which is accurate. Robert Jordan, yeah, he was he was a helicopter gunner in the Vietnam War, and so yeah, his experience with war, obviously, I think sort of does come through in this. But yeah, I mean, I think the other thing too is like the thing you want is that there's so many, to set up this um this battle. There are a bunch of moving pieces. There's a bunch of these different factions that like Perrin is figuring out that will obviously lead into not just that the Trollocs are potentially attacking and why they're doing that, but you have the Tinkers come in, and then you're going to have this idea of Perrin and Fael eventually going to see if they can convince the White Cloaks to work with them. And it all just feels like there's so much happening that it's in a way that feels like it makes sense and it's interesting and compelling. So yeah, it's a really good start, I think, to the episode.
Mhm.
As that we also get sort of like Maxime and Alana training everyone, which again, classic tropey stuff, but it
Mhm.
works. Yeah.
Yeah, we spend some time in this episode trying to build up the townsfolk a bit more, which is very necessary at this point. Again, I feel like this would have been better if we had done some of the work, some more of this work previously. But Alana's discovering that the wisdom can channel, and like, oh, that's great for us. And Maxim is training them, like, hold the line. They're like, just give us some longbows, which is very, very true to the Two Rivers folk. They love their longbows. And then we also see Perrin's wolf banner
Yeah.
is erected, and this is very much a thing in the books that he's like, no, don't do that. No, I don't like that. Take that banner down. And they're like, okay, Lord Goldeneyes, we'll take the banner down. And he's like, but no, don't just follow my order. Like,
Right.
it's great stuff. Great stuff.
I like this thing of Fael telling him like, "Hey, Trollocs are afraid of wolves. Like, actually, like, probably just have it up because like, scare them off." It's kind of fine, whatever, whatever. Yeah, it's really fun. That thing of, I feel like they could have done so much more here with like, because I feel like that is really in the books how it cements of like they just will listen to anything he's doing, and the more that they listen to him, the more annoyed he gets that they're listening to him, and tries to get them to stop listening to them. And by stopping listening to him, they are in fact listening to him. It's very fun. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And there are a bunch of really great Fael moments, but this first one with the wolf banner and her saying, like, if they were looking for the best general, they'd be
Yeah.
following Alana. If they were looking for the best fighter, they'd be following the Aiel. But they follow you because you're one of them, and if you're able to fight and stand up to these monsters, then they feel like they can too. Um, and that's like super important for Perrin to like understand that, like, he is a key piece of this, and he needs to stand up and be a leader here. And again, like, I wish this conflict of leadership had been set up a little sooner, but it's a great moment for Fael. I think we've probably mentioned before that, like, her character in the book usually takes a while to for you to warm up
Yep.
to Fael, and I think that she is doing really good things. They're doing really good things with her character, and I think that her actor is just phenomenal. I think that the way that she, the way that I feel like I can read everything on her face while still feeling like she's being like a human and not just like telegraphing every emotion, and is just great. I think she's doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah, in a lot of the preseason press stuff, there was a lot of talk about like Fael showing up and people, and I think the actors being very excited for people to see this performance, which was interesting, and I feel like it is like, sort of proven to be true. I think this is a very good performance in the show.
Mhm. So they go. Lord Luke, I guess, has helped them liaison with Dane Bornhold, and they just got out of their scuffle, basically. And Perrin is like, so. Can you help us out? We got some. You claim to be against dark friends and such, Shadow Spawn. There's a bunch of Trollocs coming to kill us. It would be great if you could, like, fight them off, maybe. And I think you're supposed to read between the lines here a little bit that Paran Fain, who showed up at the end of either the previous episode or the one before, the last time we sort of saw the White Cloaks, he showed up in disguise, in white cloak garb, being like, "Oh yeah, we ran into some Trollocs and we killed them." I think you're supposed to read between the lines that like Padan Fain has been giving them some false intel about how many Trollocs there are, to really try to paint the Two Rivers folk as lying. Like, oh no, there's not that many Trollocs. And so you have a little bit of this conflict here that, of course, eventually expands into the heart of the matter, which is like, I'm not a dark friend no matter how much you want me to be. And he's, why would I want you to be? I have enough reason to hate you. You killed my father. You killed my father. And I love this line from Perrin that when he brings up Matt's mom, and he's like, she was a witch. He's like, no, she wasn't. She died for your grief, just like your father died for mine. You really are seeing the kinds of like leadership qualities that Perrin has, the ways that he's thinking about things, and he's got a way with words sometimes. This quiet boy.
Yeah, I think the performance here is really good. This is Marcus Rutherford, I believe, is the actor who's playing Perrin. It's there is sort of, I think, as you meet the Two Rivers folk, and especially the guys. I think there's Perrin is the most. I think I saw a Reddit post. He gives off very much Jon Snow energy in terms
Mhm.
of like, what the deal that he's ultimately going to propose here, which is, if you help me, I will turn myself in. And you're a little like, bro, come on, you don't have to do that. Just tell, don't do that. But that's Perrin, the like, sort of like, right and justice and that sort of stuff, which it's fun. It works, I think, for me. And I think that the speech is good. It's good writing, I think, in terms of that line that he gives about why Matt's mom had died. It's strong.
Mhm.
It's good.
Yeah, and of course, like Perrin has a lot of conflict with the White Cloaks in particular, and that's because he does share a lot of qualities with them, like this
Right.
idea of honoring your word despite the fact that it might mean your own demise. Um, the White Cloaks claim to be basically what Perrin actually is, and they are the way that they see themselves is that they care about honor and truth and light, and that desire for that kind of commitment often leads them astray. Whereas Perrin is constantly battling with himself. He is not sure about himself in the way that the White Cloaks are constantly sure of themselves and in their morality and their rightness. He's constantly questioning himself, but in the process, again, is what they claim to be. And if anything, that kind of just makes them hate him more, I think. And so you see this conflict with him and Sir Bornhold. So we then get more Maxim and Alana. They're finally kind of like moving past their grief. He wipes the remainder of the ashes off of her cheeks as they have a bit of a scene together.
So
So they
playful with
got that going
with the
on.
fig. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, a fig. Oh, like, okay, all right, fine, whatever.
Yeah. And then we get another Perrin and Fail scene. Now this scene very much represents, I would say, like 3 books worth of arguments between Perrin
Yeah,
and Fael.
yeah,
Where he's like, you gotta go and be safe, and she's like, no, I'm gonna fight. You're not in charge of me. And he's like, yeah, but I don't want you to die. And she's like, but screw you then. I'm gonna do what I want. If you respected me, you'd want me to fight with you. He's like, I do respect you, I just don't want you to die. um we're getting it all in one, I think, very, very good argument here. I thought this worked very well. She brings up his wife.
yeah.
And this is, again, like, I fully understand the criticism about the decision to include that in the first place, but like the reason why I wasn't as upset by it as I think a lot of people is just how perfectly it fits into so many of Perrin's arcs throughout the series. And this is just another one of them where, like, of course, he's going to be super concerned about going to battle with his new partner after what happened the last time. And she calls him on that shit. She's like, I'm not your wife. And honestly, you are disrespecting her memory to act in the way that you are. Save your guilt for the enemies that get away. I thought was a great line. And again, I just feel like this relationship is working so well, much better than it does in the books. Really, really working for me in the show.
I like the line too where she makes the joke about his wife, and then he's like telling her to leave, and she's like, "No, I'm choosing to fight." It's just we respect something about respect before battle and honor after it. I really liked that little line of like respect that I'm gonna like choose to fight here. I'm gonna stay and fight. Like I might not be here, and I think what works about it too is there's a little bit of self righteousness um in Parent 2 with this whole like just leave, just go, like don't fight, like you don't even know anybody here, you don't even care about anybody here, and it's like uh not true, but also let me do what let me make my own choices. I think it's good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then you see sort of like another version of this with Loial, and I was very
Mhm.
confused about what was happening here for a little while. But he is going to propose to the Aiel that they finally play Maiden's Kiss with him. I was like, that doesn't feel very loyal like.
Uh-huh.
And then of course the idea is that he is trying to repay or trying to get them to repay the toe, so that because he feels like the only reason they're there is because they owe toe to him. But it was him and Perrin, no, like
Yeah.
or was it just to him? Either way.
Yeah.
um the idea being like, oh, well, by giving up the game, they have now saved my life and no longer owe me anything. And then they sort of like outsmart him by saying, well, knowing that you went into this game, knowing that you were going to not play it and therefore risk your life in order to get us to repay, means that we now owe you again.
Right, right. Yeah, I this stuff has always confused me a little bit, like some of the, but like I get the point that basically like he tried to do something, it didn't quite work, and they're gonna go with him anyway. It gets the point across, even if I was a little like,
Mhm.
okay, all right, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And that of course like leads to the mission that he is proposing, which is that they need to shut down this waygate in order to stop more Trollocs from coming, more reinforcements. And Loial is the waygate guy, or at least you kind of assumed that he would be. His ultimate strategy to stop it didn't seem like it exactly required his knowledge or expertise, maybe his strength. But he proposes, I'm going to go with the Aiel. We're going to shut this down. And Perrin feels like, well, this is a way for you to essentially get away. Don't come back. And is that an order, Lord Goldeneyes? And he's don't call me that. Don't call. This is such a nice scene between them. Saying your name sings in my ears is an Ogier kind of thing to say. And how they name each other and saying like, your book will mean so much. Tell our story. I thought this was a really nice scene.
Yeah, and the other piece I feel like is again just with the more time and the ability with the books to say things over and over again. There is such a relentless thing about like Loial needs to go back to a setting, and I think it's probably done. But I was kind of like, oh yeah, there's that thing that we're doing too, where like he's been away for so long. This like very funny bit about like that he's like so old, but it's like actually he's very young. It needs to, he's like actually not supposed to be away from home right now. And so parents sending him off to be like, you have to go home, like don't come back here. Setting up obviously what we'll get worked for me as well. I like this interaction a lot.
Mm-hmm. So we also have a cute little scene with Perrin and Matt's sisters. They're like, "Why didn't he come back?" And he's like, "Well, here's why." And he shows them the awful drawing of Matt and the horn, and they're making fun of him and the horn. And I thought that was very cute.
It's cute. Yeah. I will say I was very appreciative of X-Ray Vision because I feel like they haven't done a very good job of telling us what Matt's sisters' names are, and I really forgot them a lot. But eventually, I do get them. I do have them written down. Bodhi, I think, and Eldrin, or Bode and Eldrin. These are their names. Apparently, who knew?
There you
Yeah.
go. But then the battle is going to start.
Yeah.
The Trollocs are approaching, and they head out to the front lines. And again, just like tactically, this seems logical. Like, you know, you've set up some defenses. You're gonna be shooting them with arrows, trap them in the defenses, then have the Aes Sedai rain down hell upon them. And then, you know, eventually you might need to fall back to the walls, and then the end. And so this was cool. And then we get this scene where I thought this was probably my favorite moment of the episode,
Yes.
where Perrin is standing there looking really badass with his armor.
Yes.
And I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of like, "You get the armor, huh?"
Mm-hmm.
I don't see anybody else with armor, and let me tell you, they needed it. I see a lot of arrows going into shoulders. But I get it. I get it. You're the general, but like, it's not. It didn't seem like a very Perrin thing to me to be like, I'm the only one wearing it. But he looked very cool in it, so I'll let it pass.
Yeah.
He's standing there. He as the enemies approach, and he kind of like walks into the middle of the you know, the not soldiers, but you know, farmers, fielders, people fighting.
Group, the two river folk.
The two folk, and fully, I'm expecting some kind of speech. Again, we're following a lot of well-trodden tropes at this point, and this is where you get the big rousing speech that leads everyone into battle. And you're sitting there, you're waiting for him to start, and instead he just starts singing. And that just hit me. That was such a great decision, because, you know, for as much as Perrin has some ways with words, like he's not a general, and he doesn't have a lot of experience doing this. But what he does have, just in the same, it's what Fael told him. It's not about the fact that he's a general or a fighter. It's about the fact that he is one of them, and they all know this song about Manetheren, and so he sort of reminds that, like, let's sing this song together, to like be unified and remind ourselves not only that, you know, we are, you know, this is our home, but also reminding them of, like, you know, your ancestors, you have the blood of warriors in you, you know, like you have this, the blood runs thick in the two rivers, you know, like it's a great choice, and I thought it works so well, and it was a very touching scene.
Yeah, it works so well, and it's okay because Maxim will make a rousing speech later. So
Exactly, he's
we'll
gonna
do
be
that.
the one
We'll
later.
do that later. But this is the thing I've talked about this, and I recently last year read all of the Lord of the Rings books, and there's so much singing in the Lord of the Rings books in a way that I think just didn't work for me as I was reading it. But there
Yeah.
is a thing that if you can make it work, like music is such an important piece of culture in our society, and if you can figure out how to like adapt that to the fantasy world, it works so well. And like this is back-to-back episodes, I think, because last week feels like maybe it's just been a long week for me. I believe it's last week when we get the Tanchico song, right? That's Elaine doing that last week in the bar 2 weeks ago.
Was that
Is it?
last? It was probably last
I
week.
think it was last week. Yeah.
Had to have
So
been.
I think so. So we get that, and then this week we get like, and that one is such a like, yeah, it's a pubby. So you know, it's like it's got like this vibe to it, and this one has this like very rowdy the way they're like pounding on the. It's so good. It's so good. I liked the scene a lot. But again, as I said earlier, it's like there's only so many ways we can keep being like, and I really liked this thing, but it is the cultural piece that I feel like, and this is probably one of the best ways in which we've shown why he's a person that they look to as their leader.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the battle starts. They start shooting them. Alana is going to pull from the wisdom and Matt's sisters, as they are linked, and you're like, "Whoa, what's it gonna be? Oh, is it gonna be more lightning?" No, it is like an ice storm raining down upon the Trollocs and Dark Friends, which was very cool. I thought worked pretty well.
I like it too, like being outside. There's like a pretty similar, like a couple of D&D spells that are like that, basically like Ice Storm or Sleet Storm. You can do either of one of these. Um, are you engaged in the like, she's too, it's the magic creep, the power, like it's all wrong. The like, she shouldn't be this powerful. She shouldn't be what like, I like, I don't want to say that I don't care about it. I guess I don't care that much, but it
I
was
think,
cool.
I mean,
So
I have disagreed with the tenor of that criticism in general anyway, but I think this instance in particular is not even really that egregious. Like to be linked with three Two Rivers strong channelers, they don't need to be trained to do
right,
this. Like the healing they did, I think was more egregious if you're worried about that stuff. For her to
right.
pull from their power and be able to do something like this, I think is perfectly reasonable. It wasn't even that like overpowered. She was able to do it once. It clearly was a huge effort. It killed a bunch of people, but then they ran away, and that was about like all that they had. This isn't Rand like without even looking, just obliterating humans. And I think the biggest issue people had was the season one finale, which was like a much bigger display of power. Now it did have Nynaeve in there, and she's very powerful, and she was being pulled from. So there is some reason to say it made some sense, but that one I think was a more egregious and understandable complaint from viewers.
It's funny because in my life I can be a very like analytical person. Like I need things to sort of like map on and make sense and be sort of structured and whatever. And there's this thing that I feel like I'm butting up against with when I sometimes like see Wheel of Time where it's like this person is this level of power. And they almost like a card game system that I'm like they're like this person has, and it's some there's like some like if you're not familiar with this, or maybe more people are than I'm aware, but I think a lot of people who are just show watchers especially would like be totally unaware. But there's like almost like challenge rating of like this person, like
There's
these
a
people are, yeah, there's like a
there's a
rating
pretty clear
system,
hierarchy in the books, in the fandom at least, that like you basically have a set amount of power
right?
in the one power, and so people who really like that stuff and care about it are likely going to be very upset with the show because the show is not probably going to abide by it strictly. But like the idea is, Rand is the strongest. This person is the second strongest. This person is the third strongest. Nynaeve is more powerful than this person, and this person is more powerful than this person, and therefore this person shouldn't be able to beat this
Right.
person in a fight, and this person should be able to do bigger things than this person. And like I do agree that there is some coolness to that, but I think that especially in a show with very limited time, I think not needing to stick strictly to it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it like kind of breaks my brain a little to be like that's how it's got to work. I don't think it has to work like that, but I'm not, obviously not like the full way through the book, so
Mhm.
yeah.
They run away. Did
Run
we
away.
do it? No, they didn't, because this is not just a normal Trolloc army. They're not just haphazardly attacking. They are being led, in this case, by Padan Fain, and he has sent in some like ambushers to sort of like take down Alana the Aes Sedai, so that they can kind of come back again. I imagine, again, in sort of my headcanon of what's happening here, reading between the lines, that Padan Fain is doing a lot of orchestrating here. He's sending in the like advanced team to go snipe down Alana, while also now convincing Dane Bornhold we should in fact go and help them so that he can do the ambush beyond the walls. And so all this is happening. Alana is going to get shot with arrows again.
Classic Alana getting shot with arrows, getting pierced in the stomach, in the back.
Oof.
Also, the wisdom dies as well, right? Because she like
Yeah, the
tries
wisdom
to put up a little bit of a protection barrier, doesn't work for that long.
doesn't work very well, goes down. And this is again where like maybe if we had set this wisdom up a little bit sooner, this could have felt a little more impactful, but what are you gonna do?
I could literally satire it with like her, like she literally pops up, like, hey, I'm here, and she
They
dies. It's
yeah, and I
fine.
mean like they did their best. Like they were like, oh, and she's kind of a drunk. Like
There's
that's her
so many
characteristic.
characters and so many. Yeah, she was like, what did she say earlier? Where she's like, it'd mean I have to stop drinking, so no, thank you. I will
And
not
then
get
when
up
they
and
do the
shower.
thing, she like takes a
Yeah,
drink
that's right.
afterward.
Yeah.
Um, Alana goes down. Uh-oh, now we're screwed. We can't hold without Alana. They do their best. This is when Maxim gives his rousing speech. Battles are won by being dumb enough to not know when you're beat, and stubborn enough to keep going, and all the other things he says. And I actually think this is a good speech. I mean, I think this is like not only appropriate for these people who are known for being incredibly stubborn, but also just in general. Like he's kind of right. Like that is like battles are lost when formations break, and if your
Right.
formations are, I guess, too dumb to not break, too dumb to realize that they've been beaten, that actually gives you more of an advantage in a battle.
For me, the whole part is that, like, there's not much you can do when we get to the scene where it's like, well, no, the problem is that they could have done more. We get to the part where it's like, oh, it's Maxim giving a speech. Like, unfortunately, that's a little bit how I feel, and I can't help it. So, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah, it's mostly fine. It's not even that. It's not even bad. It's just fine. Yeah.
Yeah. But they end up showing back up at Emmons Field, the inn, and the walls. Like, oh, there's not much we can do here. And that's when, look who's here. It's the White Cloaks, here to save the day. Except Perrin immediately spots Pot on Fanny. You're Pot on Fane. He's a dark
Yeah.
friend. Close
Yeah.
the gates. It's too late.
Too late.
And Dane's like, I didn't know. You should have known.
I like this. I think this
Yeah.
worked for me. This piece of like them coming in. Yeah, and the thing you said earlier about like how you sort of suspect all of it went down. I feel like that's exactly what it like that's my read of like he purposely gets them to fall back and also at the same time gets the White Cloaks to go in. Therefore, he can like it's a Trojan horse to a degree, a little
Mm.
bit. It's very good and the scene worked for me incredibly well. And this is where you like start to spur the Tuathan are gonna like get the children and go to like flee down the tunnel. So this worked for me. I thought to like as like an escalation of like this is actually where the battle is. I think it was good.
Yeah. So I think that we can now move to the side stories that are happening during this final battle, which is that the Tuathan are being sent out, flee with our children. And oh boy, I forget his name now.
His name is
Um,
Aram. A
Aram.
Aram, Aram, and then Illa is the woman who.
And I have since watched Bad Sisters,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
the time that I watched season one and season three of The Wheel of Time, and I was like, I know him from somewhere beyond just this show.
Yeah.
So yes, they are sent off to run away, but there is a Trolloc waiting and terrorizing them. And in a scene that mirrors the one we saw in Ruidian, Aram is going to take up arms to defend himself and the little baby that he's carrying, kill the Trolloc, and now he is going to be sort of removed. He is going to be ejected from the Tinker community.
Yeah, it worked. I mean, it works. There's not like much else I think to um, say about this scene. It's cute that he's like
I
holding
think
a little baby, but
Yeah, what I would say is that in the books, this is more of a conscious decision by Aram. He sort of like decides, he like lets them know, like, hey, I'm gonna fight. And they're like, no, don't. How could you? He's like, I gotta fight like before the battle starts, basically. Um, and I think you still get in this episode like the sense that he is thinking about it. I don't think this came out of nowhere, but they basically just made this a little bit more dramatic, and and more in keeping with the pace of the episode as well, to have this dramatic moment be at this time.
I think keep an eye out for he's played by Daryl McCormack. Not only in Bad Sisters, he was in Peaky Blinders. He's in this really great movie called Good Luck to You, Leo Grand, and I believe he was also in Twisters last year. So I feel like he's gonna. I feel
Oh
like
yeah, it wasn't Twisters.
he's gonna break out a little bit. I think he's So yeah.
Yeah. He eventually gets the invite to be the new blacksmith,
Yeah, that's
which
nice.
is
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, in the meantime, Loial is off with the Aiel to seal the Waygate. And again, great moment from the Aiel with the little like even wetlanders like shadow spawn are
Yeah.
soft, so like leaving only a few people behind to guard this thing. There's so much fun in this episode. They
They're
have a
great.
really cool fight scene. Loyal's tossing people around and smashing their chests with his big hammer. And then again, he pulls out the Avendosora.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're always touching. Such a
Yeah.
great line.
It's very good. They're fun. This is a very fun like two of the most like, different groups of people you could have interact in the show. We get them
Mhm.
in the midst of a very serious episode. It's very good. It's very fun.
Yep. Loyal says, I've got to go in there and close it from the other side. And I'm like, that sounds very sacrifice yourself, Loyal. What are you talking about? What do you mean? And he goes in and he tries to. I thought that he was just going to do something with the leaf. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like there's some kind of knowledge that the Ogier have. He knows how to operate the ways. He knows how to shut it down. I believe in the books he does do something. I think he just like removes a piece and then it stops working. But in the show, he needs to go in and he needs to hammer it down. He can't do it. The gate itself is too protected, and the Trollocs are coming and they're coming, and he eventually decides, oh well, what if I just hammer down the blocks beneath me, and he does and tumbles to his death, seemingly.
Did you watch the deleted scene, Taran? Did you watch?
And
Did
I
you
did
watch?
not.
Yeah, there's a scene where Loyal looks back out and he goes, "Fly, you fools!" and then he falls down. No, he did. That's not true. But everyone's saying it. Loyal is Gandalf,
Hmm.
so yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, this has been I think, been like sort of the one of the biggest like, hey, thing that's happened so far. I don't mind. I don't mind. I mean, I love Loyal. I'm like sad. Um, he's he's dead, gone from the show. I'm not the biggest fan of that, but I think as a moment, it works as a scene. So
Yes. So I think what we can say here is that this is a change from the books. I won't detail how, I guess, but we will talk more about it in the spoiler section. But it's definitely like obviously when you're dealing with a major character death like this, changes from the books are going to be potentially controversial. I will say I thought it was a nice ending for Loyal. And I guess I'm not super mad about it in the way that I think some people might be, but much more to say, I think, in spoiler section.
and I think like it's hard to kind of talk because we do this thing of like breaking out like this piece and the next piece, and so obviously we're saying, oh, it's changed from the books. It obviously means there have been other deaths on the show. Like who's the guy who Uno, is it not Uno, who
Uno.
get, yeah, like that was a
Uno.
major change. And so like it's hard to we won't say, oh, and these are all the other things he goes and does, because these are like they might have actually killed him off. It's also a little tough because like the way he dies, to me, like I would be, if I didn't know, if I hadn't read the books, I would be saying like, didn't see a body, didn't like he flows down into mysterious ether, which is supposed to be extremely dangerous, but we don't actually know. So this idea of like Loyal being dead, like I honestly just don't know. We just don't know. So
We don't
yeah,
know.
we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back at the battle, parents feeling bad. And once again, Fail comes in, says, "What would you give for these people? Everything." Well, then show them. And he takes up the hammer with the axe, dual wielding. Great little moment. He says, "Stay behind me." Just like, are you serious? After all, he's like, "Kill the ones I miss."
It's good.
She's
It's a
like,
good line.
ah,
It's
okay,
good.
yeah,
Yep.
I'll do that. Really cool scene with the two of them and the contrasting fighting styles. I think was very, very fun.
Yep. I think we're gonna go from this into a white cloak confronting who I have their names, Bode and Eldrin. And
Mhm.
boy, they light him on fire and it is very cool. Like that is pretty rad. I like that a lot. Just lit him on
Yes,
fire.
the guy that killed their mother, who has been such a terrifying force in the show so far,
Yeah.
is taken out by Matt's sisters for our mother, or for mother, whatever they say. And
I
man,
think
he
they
goes
said,
down.
"For
He
my
gets crispy.
mother." That's what they said. Like,
Yeah.
"For my mother, my mother."
This is also a change from the books.
Yep.
So we can probably talk more about that as well in the spoiler section. But, honestly, a bit of an unceremonious end to this character who has been such a terrifying force in the show, but certainly a deserved one.
I
So,
liked it. I liked it. I thought it
yeah.
looked cool and was badass. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Uh, and then as Perrin and Fael fight their way through, they stumble upon one Padan Fane, and Perrin whips the hammer out at him and stops him from running away, and confronts him on the ground. And this is where I got a little iffy, because like Fael, I was like, why isn't he just killing him?
Yep.
Kill him. Instead, he sort of interrogates him, like, okay, you're trying to get information. You are in the middle of a battle. This is not exactly the time, but he has a plan. And the plan is that he's essentially threatening to kill him. Why did you do this? He asks. Why do you hate us? He's like, I don't hate you. The Dark Lord wanted you to wipe out your town to make a point to the Dragon Reborn. So that's all I was doing.
Yeah.
What do you want from me?
And it's basically like I think it's in between this moment that like Patton has said like, oh, the reinforcement, like there's thousands more coming, and then the Waygate like blows up
Yes.
essentially,
Well,
right?
this is like I take small issue with this because he's basically like, kill me or don't. There's 1,000
Yeah.
more Trollocs on the way through the Waygate, which, like, in the world where that's happening, right? He's saying it doesn't matter if I die, you're screwed anyway. It gives Perrin zero incentive to not kill him. Um, and then immediately following, the reinforcements are not. The reinforcements do not matter to Padan Fane in this moment. He is either going to be killed by Perrin or not killed by Perrin. The sort of the point of this climax is that he gives up the conquering of this town in order to save his own life, because they probably, reinforcements or not, were going to win.
Yeah.
But he wanted to save his own life. But in this moment, before the Waygate blows up, he's like, I don't care if I die.
Yeah. So there's like yeah, there's a little bit of like it's yeah, I think written not the best, which I think you either need Potifane to be scared that he's going to die the whole time, or you need him to basically like not be afraid to die, and essentially I think almost like play into that like Perrin is a a Two Rivers folk and probably won't kill him or something. Like you need to Potifane probably the whole time to be one way or the other for it to work. But you're right that like sort of the way he's acting in both sets of this, where like first he's like, I don't care because I have reinforcements coming, and then when he knows the reinforcements aren't coming, it doesn't quite track with it doesn't track, I guess. So
And it's kind of a small complaint, but like I think even just a small little change of like, hey, if you kill me, I've got all these reinforcements coming through the Waygate. They will run you over. Don't kill me, and we can work something out. And
right,
then the Waygate blows up, and Perrin's like,
right,
you got even less leverage now,
right,
bro.
right, right,
Like that would have made a little more sense to me.
right.
You do miss the like, I smell your fear stuff, which is cool, but I also think was like, it didn't
Uh,
quite
but
work for me.
But you could have that at the beginning. If Patton's like, "Don't kill me, I want to make a deal," you could say, "Hey man, I can smell your fear," and then boom, it blows up, and then he's like, "Oh yeah," like you could still have it. You could still have it. So
Yeah, I like the smelling the fear stuff. This is true to the books. Perrin smells emotions. It's actually a huge issue with him and Fael. um,
right, right,
but They haven't really set that up in the show too much, so this does feel a little bit out of nowhere. Also, like the line about like, out of all these people here, you're the only one afraid to die. It's a cool line. There's no way that's true, man. Like,
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Well, I kind of feel like that's the problem with the scene, is that it's sort of designed for like maximum sort of like, look, Potifan's like big bad villain, he's like big, he's like, yeah, don't worry, like reinforcements are coming, and they blow up, and then it's suddenly like, oh no, actually now he's like like, now we want to make Perrin look really cool. It's not consistent enough probably, for it all to work as well as it should. Yeah.
Yes, and so the result here is that if Patton Fane's like, we can work something out, we can make a deal, and then Perrin says, no, I'll make the deal.
That's right. I know. Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
what did you think the deal was going to be?
And
That you are agreeing to what he wants.
yeah, and the deal is so bad. It's like, you just run away forever. It's like, okay. Like,
Yeah, he's like, how do you know I'll keep my promise? He's like, oh, I'll keep my promise and I'll make sure you die. He's like, oh yeah, next time I'll just stand up on the hill and let the Trollocs come in on
no,
their
but
own.
no, but
Like,
he can't make sure he keeps the end of the deal, because if he does it, he's then reneged on the deal, and then he has to kill him. The deal is run away and never come back. But if he comes back, then Perrin will kill him. Therefore, because he reneged on the deal, like, it doesn't make. It's all for like cool action hero guy talk, and
not
it's
to mention the
not.
fact that Perrin gives himself up to the White Cloaks at the end of this episode, and is therefore in no position to keep Podon Fane at bay when he still has all of these Trollocs and Dark Friends that he can attack the Two Rivers with. Like, oh man, I'm so scared of Perrin if I go back. Oh, he's under arrest. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
let's go back.
Yeah. Yeah. Tough ending, I think, to the episode. Yeah.
And then I think the execution of it also just felt weird. Like, I know you control them. That works. That tracks. The idea that Pat and Fane can control the Trollocs is something that does make some sense. And like, call them off. Like, okay. But then he gets up, he yells at them, and they all just like stop fighting and just kind of like stomp their feet on their way. Like, okay, fine, we'll leave. And then like everyone's cheering. And that just felt like the wrong note for me.
Yeah, they're all
The
dead. A bunch of
cheering
them
and the
are.
celebration.
They all
Like,
died and are dead. It's like, yeah.
there's so many of them that just died. And I just feel like there's obviously some amount of like relief, maybe some small celebration, but it should be, in my opinion, tinged with a deep sadness and grief over what that just cost them. These are not, as they mentioned, soldiers. Like, they are not used to this level of like, death. They were attacked by the Trollocs once before, obviously, but like, if anything, that just makes it worse. This is the second time now that they have dealt with just so much death and loss. And I feel like I needed to feel more of that in that moment. And and then afterward, in the aftermath of it, we still didn't get it. It still felt joyful. It still felt like, yay, Perrin. And it was like, oh, we're sad that we lost Loial, but like, we're like, look at this, where it's so good. And I feel like I think it all comes back to just like the lack of development for the townsfolk themselves. That like, we obviously felt sad for Loial, but like, I think that Loial needed to represent the loss that everyone was feeling, and I just didn't get enough of that. I needed more from the townsfolk about like their loss, to help make this feel bigger. So I didn't love that stuff. What I will say is that I do think I get what they were going for with this. And for as much as I do have complaints about it, I do still like some of it, because it all comes back to the Tinkers and this idea of, nonviolence, pacifism, that, you know, Perrin, knocks down Padden Fane, and Fael is screaming, kill him, and Perrin doesn't kill him. And by not killing Podden Fane, he unlocks the only scenario where they live. because if he had killed Padan Fain, the Trollocs just continue to rampage and they probably all die. But because Padan Fain is able to call them off by not killing him, he's actually managed to save the day. And that tracks with at the end, like this whole message with the Tinkers, like at some point somebody has to say it's enough. And that is how Perrin actually managed to succeed. It wasn't through violence. It wasn't through killing Fain. It was through sparing him that they succeeded. That works. That bridges the gap between these two philosophies and these two necessities, or the philosophy and the necessity of the moment, in a way that I think is interesting and speaks to Perrin as a character, and again, like the Robert Jordan, the writer, the original writer, at least. I think that all works. It was just the execution of it just felt too clunky. It was like they were like they I think they had the right general idea, but they didn't know how to fit the pieces together to make it feel natural and good to me, at least.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with that. I think like thematically it makes some sense and could work, but there's like a little bit too much. Like we've said, we just like went over this, like the scene with Pat and Finn. There's just a little bit too much inconsistency to then be like by the time we get to this point for it to feel like it like you're sort of lost, and then I'm like, oh, I think we're like close to the right track. We're just not maybe all the way there. I think by the end of the episode, because I actually think the decision in and of it's funny because he basically makes like back to back. He kind of makes two decisions that are like kind of the annoying, like Jon Snow, like, like, oh, it's so annoying, that like he won't kill Pat and Fane. Oh, it's so annoying that he's giving himself up. I actually do think one of them works much. Do think the one where he gives himself up to the White Cloaks, I think is fine. The other one I think makes no sense at all. And because one doesn't work, it's like kind of like tainting the other one to a degree. So
Yeah, I mean, even I think part of it too is that like he literally lets him stand up and start walking away immediately, like before, like like Pat and Fane could have been like, all right, guys, stop, let's all leave, walked out the gate himself, and then been like, never mind, you guys turn around and start fighting again. And then run off himself. Like if this was really like self-preservation, there's so many different ways he could have screwed them over. And so like even if Perrin had just been like holding him at axe point while he ordered his troops to go away, and then like kept him captive for a while, and then they were deciding, should we now kill him or should we send him off, should we let him go, and that being a decision, like a harder decision to make, now that they have like all the leverage in the world, like that also could have been, I think, a little more functional, but yeah, just felt a little off, I think,
well,
overall.
part of it too, I think, is like they kind of needed this. They wanted this scene. This is a little bit of what we've talked about with other shows that you and I have talked about, where it's like they clearly want something to happen, but they're not quite sure. They're not doing a good enough job of getting to it or getting out of it,
Yep.
because they basically, like, the problem is in the books, Pat and Fane never really goes to. He never really goes to two, like specifically to Two Rivers. He's in like the area, but he kind of just
Well, he's
like
in the Two Rivers. I don't think he's like at the battle, like near Emmons, because the Two Rivers is like the
yeah, right,
overall
right.
land area. The
I'm
Emmons Field is like the small town.
You're right. I'm mixing up what I meant to, which is like
Yeah.
I'm like, he never goes to Emmons Field. He like watches it and realizes it's like not really working. And he's like, all right, let's go. And he gets out of there. And so the problem is that like they wanted him to be more present in the Emmons Field stuff without really having a great way to like get him out of there to keep doing probably what they want. Like not that he will go do what he was doing. But like, yeah, so it's just a little messy to get to a point where they want the really great scene of like the Trojan horse thing, and then they want this moment of like Perrin looking like a badass. Neither one, like, they just didn't like figure out how to write themselves out of the corner, Yeah.
Yes. Now, this is not, I think, spoilery in any way. That basically how this was done in the books is that when Perrin tells Fael to leave, she does. She agrees to leave, and she goes off very mad, but they make a deal, and she leaves, and then the battle happens, and then she comes back having gathered forces from like a neighboring town to save the
Right.
day.
Right.
And they successfully fight off the Trollocs, and that's, yeah, as you said, Pat and Fane just like leaves at that point. They change this in the show, and I think to good effect. I think that, yeah, like having the White Cloaks come in breaching the walls in that way made some sense. And like it was more dramatic that way. And because they didn't spend as much time building up the people of the two rivers,
Yeah, to be saved
it
by
makes
some
more sense
random
that like
people.
we're
Yeah.
not seeing random neighboring town coming to save the day.
Well,
So like
and book one again. Not only do you spend so much time there, you also the thing about the first few books of the Wheel Time, you spend so much time traveling. It's like so much time. You're like you go and you meet you stop in a little inn and you're there and something maybe happens, and so like you get really immersed in this world. So then when it's like later in the books, you're like, oh, it's those two, and you're like looking to the front of the book at the map. You're like, oh, they're from there, and like that's fun. I would agree that like not the right choice for the show. And one thing again, I'll say I do think all the stuff you just laid out for why the actual end scene of like Perrin giving himself up to the White Cloaks, I think actually works really well. I just think like I don't know, I'm trying to think of a metaphor that works, but like, it was a bumpy road to get there, but then I actually like we took the wrong scenic route, but like once we got there,
yeah,
I'm actually fine where we ended up.
that's exactly where I'm at, and that because like there's so much about this episode that I really liked. And even like the overall thematic thrust of this episode, I thought really worked. It's just that, yeah, there were some bumps in the road, especially toward the end, that I took some issue with. But again, what I would say is that like in the past, I've felt somewhat similarly about overall themes
Mhm.
being good, but like big action set pieces being really illogical and really hard to justify and follow in a logical sort of pathway. And I think this one just kind of stumbled at the finish line, but was pretty good most of the way through, which is much
Yeah.
better than I think many of the ones before have been.
Yeah, the other thing about this, I think, is I feel like Wheel of Time, to a degree, is getting a little bit of a reputation. This is what I'm seeing. I don't know that I fully agree with it. There's a little bit of like they stumble at the end. They can come out strong and things are building. And it's actually funny because it's the complete inverse of what I've loved about reading Robert Jordan's books. Robert Jordan, to me, starts off a little bit meandering, a little bit like I'm like, all right, I got to get back into it, like slow. People split up and they're like, we're slow traveling or meeting people, whatever, and then at the end you're like you get kind of like two-thirds of the way in and you're like, oh my god, it's all intertwining and it all is great, and you're get like it just like gets to this point where it like kicks into gear and everything makes sense, and I feel like he's especially good at like the climax of his books. I think the show so far is having people, there's some not general feeling, but there are some like feelers out there that are like the show is doing the opposite of like it's starting strong and they can't build on their momentum, which I would say is not the best reputation reputation
Well, I
to
think
have, but yeah,
I think
I don't
to
know
be
if it's
fair,
fully true. I don't know if it's fully true that
yeah.
it
I
just
mean,
isn't strong.
I think it's somewhat true. I think that it is it's harder for um the climax culmination pulling together all of these different threads. I think that's harder to do in a show than it is in a book. I think that you have a
I would
lot
agree
more
with that.
space to build out those threads and then weave them together in a really nice way. In a book, whereas in a show you don't have as much space for that. But then the inverse is also sometimes true, where like with a show it can be easier to like really live in these smaller moments, and expand them and make them feel really like good and emotional, whereas like in a book you don't have as many tools to do that. You don't have all the visual tools to like make those smaller moments work as well. So it's not super surprising to me that it sort of functions this way.
The one other thing I would say is that like, I mean, obviously Robert Jordan like would, if there's ever a worry about this in terms of like the book starting too slow. It's a thing I have like talked to people who are like ginormous Wheel of Time fans are always like, yeah, you gotta get over, like you just like get through the hump of like starting the new book because they're so long. They feel like such a commitment. But there is also the reality that a television show is often not afforded the same level of like starting off slow, and I guess I can't really speak because I wasn't around like at the time the books were coming out. So by the time I'm reading them, I have a level of like, well, I know it's going to get good because everybody I know says it gets good, and there's like 14 books, and so they obviously let them keep making this. But a show that is like literally probably worried about whether or not it'll be canceled or renewed can't decide to start a season slow, and for people to be like, it's maybe slow and boring. I'm going to check out. I'm not going to watch it. Like they sort of have, this is like sort of a major problem with television and movies these days is this idea that you have to capture someone right at the very beginning. And you have to put the action right up front. Like this season, as much as I think it worked, we did get like a new set piece that's like not really from the books inserted into the show to create a thing that happened at the begin in the first episode of this show. And I don't think that that is disassociated from the fact that like the show is a show that many people are worried won't be renewed. I'm sure, including the people who make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at the end, of course, we talked about it. Perrin gives himself up to the White Cloaks, and again, like this tracks, I think, with like the story that they were being told about Perrin. That in a moment of need, he is willing to fight, but he is really attracted to this way of the leaf, this pacifism, and at some point, somebody has to say it's enough. And in now a time of peace, he thinks that it is sort of he has the space to take this hit, to stay true to his word. Now, again, I don't think that exactly tracks with how the battle ended. That like Padan Fane still has a bunch of Trollocs and Dark Friends that he could attack the town with, and if Perrin is not there to defend, then he kind of is still needed there. But overall, I think it still is functional, and very curious to see where this goes. I would say this is another change in terms of how this is happening from the books. But we can get into more of that in the spoiler section. But I'm definitely personally curious as a book reader to see where this goes at this time.
Yep, same. But yeah, not much more to add at this point.
All right, let's get into spoilers then, because there's a few things to talk about. If this is your time to leave, then thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week for the finale coverage. Yes. And now let's just jump right in. Let's just talk about some of the big ticket items here, Grace, which is that Loial died.
Yeah, Loial died.
What?
Yeah, so it's like say that like so. I mean, again, and I was really like fighting this of like, should I say? I'm thinking I'm going to say this, and I shouldn't know if I should. But if it was any other show where I didn't know what was going to happen, I'd be like, I didn't actually see him. Like I mean, literally, Gandalf. When Gandalf fell, he came back. I mean, he did come back. So I think that there's potential. Like, and I think the thing of it too is like, if these are things that the Ogier's built, then like there's a people say it's dangerous down there. Not that it can still be dangerous however he falls, but like I don't know that Loial's dead. I don't know. I'm just
that was my instinct. That was my first thought. Was like, oh, obviously he's not dead because we know it doesn't die. But then, like, the more I thought about it, it was just kind of like, but can you imagine the world where like Loial shows up and he's like, nah, actually, here's what happened. The eagle saved me, and I battled the Balrog, and now I'm back as Loial the White. And it's like, for what purpose? Because he doesn't really have a ton of purpose in the story anymore. Like, I survived death, and now I will take my book back and keep writing it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, writing the book is maybe. I mean, that is a thing. That is. I mean, I guess if
Certainly.
he's like finishing the book, I think is like. And again, the biggest piece of this is that like I don't really know the rest of Loial's story. I basically know like a couple more books worth of stuff, and I would agree that by the point we're getting there, like that coming back to. I guess there is a point that I was in where I guess you're right. Like, is the idea of like bringing him back more powerful than this idea of like he sacrificed himself to prevent the two rivers from being demolished? And like I think that is probably the key here to a little bit of like not just that Padan Fane can't like he wouldn't just go back, but some of it is that like they did lose potentially access to like he says thousands of Trollocs, and so that actually being closed off is a thing that like might make him be like, yeah, okay, maybe we shouldn't actually go back. Like I got to figure out what to do as my next maneuver. I'm going to take some time. So that does make sense. And so like that impact of like basically Loial saving the two rivers, there is some thematic juice to that I think is probably better to just leave it. But my TV instincts are like, we didn't see the body. He's coming back,
Well, and I do think it also makes sense in the context of the episode that like this is another act of non-violence, technically, like self-sacrifice,
right.
that saves them more than it than like fighting does. Granted, he had to do some fighting to get there. But yeah, so a theory I have seen being kind of like bandied about at this point is that that he is really dead. However, I've seen this. I didn't confirm this, and I would certainly not be smart enough to notice it myself. But apparently, the Horn of Valir theme played during his death.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so, like Uno before him, that could be an indication that we do get more of Loial in the future, just as a hero of the Horn.
Oh, interesting.
Kind of spun back into like the pattern via maybe like the dream world or like all of the other various ways that this can happen, or just like straight up from the Horn. Like that maybe we will get him to show up at specific times, but now they don't have to do all this makeup constantly to keep him around all the time.
Yeah. One of the I think this was a Screen Rant that suggested that like the reason for killing Loial here might be to he's a character who, because he doesn't have so much to do, that this is a character that they put in here to basically emotionally prepare audiences for like, we're gonna make more changes. Just like Uno is feels like, is he kind of the other, I mean, I think he's so far the biggest example of like, oh, that guy's around a lot longer, but he's so dead.
Well, yeah, Uno is like straight up killed, and he's around for a lot longer. There are other characters that they just have just completely removed.
Right. Right. So is Loyal kind of like the most prominent character that like gets a essentially a character death, if we're going to call it, if it is that for sure. And is that in some ways preparing people for like, a little bit of like, here's this one before we do this other big thing that we're going to do. I have no reason to know or think that. It's a thing. I think I saw Screen Rant suggested that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we also saw, forgive me, I don't remember his name, but the White Cloak who gets burned alive.
I don't remember his name either.
Something Valda, I think.
Voldemort.
He he also does not die here. He also is like slightly a different character. I would maybe even more than slightly in the books. Just sort of like in terms of how scary he is in the show. He does have more of a role to play later in the books, but I think it's fairly easily cut. It felt to me like they were building him up and then kind of changed their minds. Like we don't really have time to let him be a major character anymore, so we're just gonna sort of like bring him back for this thing and then kill him off because we need to have an ending to this character. More so than it felt like super well planned and executed, but I'm not like mad about it.
Yeah, I don't remember this character at all, so I think totally. I liked the death, so all good, all fine by me. Yeah.
And then, of course, the other major thing is that Perrin does not go with the White Cloaks here in the books. That's because they didn't even help in the books. It's like I'm not gonna, honor my word to you if you don't help me. At least that's what I remember. However, this does track with things. I don't even know, Grace, if you have gotten this far, but this could lead into scenes from much later in the books that deal with a similar kind of situation. We could just be doing that a lot earlier. I would assume that's what's happening here. Now that is with some different characters than this set of White Cloaks. But I do think that would be my best guess as to where this is heading. And it makes some amount of sense because after Perrin sort of succeeds here in the Two Rivers, he really doesn't have a ton to do for a while beyond like some things that are interesting, but probably not show worthy interesting. And so to fast track him into this plot line, I do think makes some sense. Although it did feel slightly clunky in terms of like just pacing for this episode. Like they just win this big battle and then he walks away and he's being declared Lord Goldeneyes. And like, how is he going to really feel like Lord Goldeneyes if he's not even there after? Like he's been Lord Goldeneyes for like a day.
Yeah, I believe I think I've seen that like it's not until book 13 stuff that like is being hinted is like that's what they could adapt. So past where
Pretty
I am
late.
currently. Most of the stuff that I'm doing is like just like it's just generally parent like being a lord. He's like, oh, I have to make all these stupid decisions. It's basically what he's dealing with. I think there's some more stuff in that book, but
Lots of
yeah,
drama, lots of relationship drama.
lots of relationship drama and being a lord. That's
Yeah.
yeah. The one thing I was going to say about we were talking about Pod and Fane not being there. The other part that I forgot about this whole section, as I was like just doing some research, is that he's like in disguise for a big part of when he's leading the when he's undercover as the White Cloak. He's like not Pod and Fane, and I forgot just how much Robert Jordan loves people being disguised as
Oh yeah.
other people. It's like the biggest thing that I'm just like so glad the show is basically not doing. Yeah.
I would say the other major thing, probably I think the only other major thing left that is a significant change is Lord Luke.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have taken issue with Lord Luke,
Yeah, people are pretty mad
basically
that Lord
being.
Luke didn't show up. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I will say, and this I'll probably be a broken record here because I'm often not taking issue with many of the things that other people take issue with. But like, I was never the biggest fan of the Lord Luke storyline. Anyway, I thought that was the weakest part of the Two Rivers plot. Basically, if you're here because you don't mind spoilers, but you haven't read the books, Lord Luke is sort of like maybe I'm not the best to describe this, and this is an indication that it wasn't my favorite storyline. But like, he's basically like some kind of like wolf dream hunter person that is like a rival to Perrin. Perrin's doing a lot of stuff in the Wolf Dream, which is Teleron Riyadh, which is what Egwene is learning right now. He has his own sort of like into that via the Wolf stuff, which they have not done at all yet. I imagine they will. The fact that they introduced Lord Luke at all is strange, given that they didn't go with his villainy angle, which could imply that they plan to do the Lord Luke stuff later, especially given that Lord Luke seems to be in with the White Cloaks. To me, what they might have done is basically move the Lord Luke stuff into next season while Perrin is dealing with White Cloak stuff. He's also now dealing with the Lord Luke stuff and learning about the Wolf Dream, and basically just separated that stuff out from the Two Rivers plot line to give him more to do in between seasons. So that's my best guess. I think the fact that they introduced him at all means that they might actually still use him in the future, just not at this time.
Right. Um, well, one of the thing about Two Rivers that's that I actually think it would have been very good to have it be Tam Althor there. I saw some suggestion that maybe it was a scheduling conflict actually that
Yeah, that's
you
what
might
I've
not have
heard.
been able to make it, but I do think we're just missing, like, it's what I said before. I said at the very beginning, the fact that we don't spend as much time in the Two Rivers to like then when we come back for it to be like super meaningful. I feel like could have been made up for a fair bit if it had been like at least one character we knew. And there's this thing where like if you can put Tam there and then connect Tam, because I believe it's like him and a bunch of like buddies, right? Like it's him and some
Well,
other
him and like Matt's dad,
right.
especially. There's a world I think where there were originally a bunch of Tam scenes. That
Yeah.
then there was a scheduling conflict. They had to cut Tam entirely, and then they just like replaced those scenes with Maxim and Alana, or like or
Okay.
didn't replace those scenes at all. And because of that, they lost something that they didn't realize they had, or So I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But I feel like it just would have added so much. So if it's a scheduling conflict, there's not really much you can do about that, I guess. But I feel like it just would have like having someone we know, I think there would have done quite a bit, even if it was just one. Because as soon as you have one person, you can have basically people tangentially related to him. I feel like it also helps. I think there's something about like, um, because we also lost like Matt's mom. I feel like the idea that like there's kind of no one who like knows that it feels like they know him personally. Like it feels like they're supposed to know him personally, but it feels a little contrived for everyone to be like perfect leader parent. But if it was like Rand's dad, who's like probably watched Parent grow up, and you could like have a speech about like, you were always the one looking, you were the sensible one of the group, like some stuff like that, I think would have gone a long way. So, and I really like the actor who plays Tam. I can't remember his name, but he's been in Game of Thrones.
That's why probably why there's a scheduling conflict, because he's an actor who's got a busy schedule.
He's a
Um,
yeah, yeah. Uh, Michael
yes,
McCalton. Yeah.
there you go. Anything else, Grace?
I don't think so. Again, I feel like this is an episode where so much of the vibes of the stuff like going on early on are like I liked a lot. I felt like most of the time like you would sort of give your like reason for liking it. I'd be like, yeah, I agree. It's like I can't, like there's not much more to add. I'm like, yeah, I like it. I thought it was good. And then it's easier to sort of like try to pick apart the things we didn't like. So overall, I feel like I come out of this episode feeling like people might think I was pretty down on this episode, but I'm actually not. I'm actually like pretty. Again, I think it's like the unfortunate part is comparison. Comparison is the worst thing for these shows, but it's like I've seen a bunch of penultimate episode, big battle episodes, and this one just like didn't quite have the like humph that like other episodes have had. But from the Wheel of Time, I think it was quite good, and it also comes in comparison to like it's not the same type of episode, but we had this episode like season 3 episode 4 like the Viridian stuff is so good that then you're like wanting it to hit that bar and it just like it just didn't, but that doesn't mean it's bad. And I am worried that a bit of the reaction is going to like see. I hope it can sort of like I think I was talking to you this before we started that it does seem like most people who got screeners didn't get the finale, and that to me is interesting in the sense that there's not much you can read into that because that could either be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. But it'll be very. But what I mean to say is that like there's really no vibes on the finale out there. So in terms of like reviews and things like that. So I'm very interested in next week's episode to see if it can sort of like stick the landing, be good enough to hopefully get renewed. I'm really hoping the show gets renewed. So
Would be great. All right. Well, I'm sure there'll be plenty to talk about next week when we watch the finale and talk through it. So if you join us then, we'll be happy to see you. And in the meantime, make sure you're subscribed to the We Know Scripted TV feed. Check out the Tastemakers podcast where we talk about all of the latest things going on in the world of TV and film, including, as I said, I watched Your Friends and Neighbors, new show on Apple. Did I like it? Did I think it was good? Should you watch it? You'll have to listen to the Tastemakers. Oh boy.
Well, and we're also on the eve of The Last of Us.
The
As
Last
we're
of Us is
recording this,
starting.
season 2, episode 1 will premiere on Sunday, and Mike and I will be doing a recap, and then Tara and I will be doing Video Game Club. But much like this podcast, you don't have to have played the video game to enjoy that podcast. So come join us for Last of Us.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us here today. We will see all of you next time.